they made it sound pretty exciting. They were like, kids are gonna come up to you. I was like, keep talking. Like kids hadn't come up to me. This was the most exciting social development of my childhood. Kids are gonna come up to you. They're gonna offer you a crank and boomers and angel dust. I was like, angel dust? I was a 6th grade altar boy. I was like, I shall try this angel dust. Soar to the heavens aside my Lord Jesus Christ. To this day, I have not been offered crank, nor angel dust, nor even cocaine. I've never seen cocaine. I mean, sometimes people don't even believe it when I say that. I work in nightclubs. Not once has someone thought, we should show it to Mike. It's like, what do I look like? That's how people see me. I was in Washington Square Park the other day, and this stranger was walking in front of me, and someone said to that stranger, you got an undercover cop walking behind you. And then he looked back at me, and I looked behind me, and there was no one there. And I said to this stranger, I go, no, which is exactly what an undercover cop would say. So I don't, I've never used recreational drugs. I mean, in college, my friends would smoke pot, but I was the least fun person to smoke with. I was the guy who was like, do you guys hate me? Why does my heart hurt? Is that rickets? Who's at the door? Who's at the door? Who's at the door? Like, it wasn't a good hang. And so I just veered away from all that. But I use prescription drugs. I don't want to, but I have to because I have a serious sleepwalking disorder. About 20 years ago, I sleepwalked through a 2nd-story window of a La Quinta Inn in Walla Walla, Washington. True story. And when you do that once, they always bring it up when you go to the doctor. And I was diagnosed 20 years ago with this very rare condition called REM sleep behavior disorder. And I've talked about it so much in my comedy specials that when you go to med school and you study sleep disorders in the DSM, the example of REM behavior disorder is me. My dad is a doctor. He wanted me to go to med school, and I didn't. But I'm in there. I basically teach. I went to my sleep doctor a couple years ago, and I mentioned this to him. I go, in the DSM, like, I'm the example of RBT. And he goes, that's not good. I go, what do you mean? We did it. He goes, well, the problem is that I'm not entirely convinced that's exactly what you have. I said, we're going to have to write a mass email. Because there's a lot of people walking around this earth thinking they have Mike Birbiglia disease. Mike Birbiglia might not have it. Can you imagine if Lou Gehrig was like, actually, I'm feeling pretty good. I think I might play baseball again. People would have been furious. That's right, I just compared myself to Lou Gehrig. No, the reason I bring up the sleepwalking is that 20 years ago, I get diagnosed with REM sleep behavior disorder, and they put me on Klonopin. And I recently went to a new doctor, and she's looking at my chart, and she goes, you've been on Klonopin for 20 years? And I go, yeah. She goes, all right. That is not what you want to hear when you go to the doctor. I go, are you concerned? She goes, well, do you know the side effects? I go, I don't know. She goes, depression, loss of memory, poor motor skills. I said, oh, I just thought that was my personality. Like, it's a strange moment in one's life when you realize your personality is side effects. Man, I'm not explaining it to you. I'm conveying it. I am manveying, and it was devastating seeing my dad in this condition because, you know, when I was a kid, I always viewed my dad as larger than life. He was almost like a mythological creature, you know. I just, in a way, I sort of wanted to be my dad because he knew so much stuff. Like, he was a doctor, and in his free time, he got his law degree. Yeah. That's how much he didn't want to be a dad. He was like... He was like, what can I do in these slots of time when I would be parenting? In fairness, we weren't great kids. We always wanted a dad. And he wanted another secondary degree. So our goals were at odds. I never saw that side of my dad, you know. Sometimes when I was a kid, strangers would come up to me, they'd be like, your dad is a great doctor. And I'd be like, all right, you know. From Worcester, Massachusetts, that's how everyone talks. Your dad is a great doctor. I'm like, all right, you know, he's not my dad. I mean, he's not, he is my dad. That was Freudian. I don't know if that'll make it in a special. Whole show's about my dad. He's not my dad. What was that first part where he said it's not his dad? Is this gonna twist into the ending of Chinatown? Well, he wasn't my doctor. Someone came up to me recently. I was walking Una home from school, and they were like, I love your comedy. I was like, oh, thanks. And they look at Una, and they go, your dad's a great comedian. She was like, all right. You know what I mean? And I was like, I know what you mean. And we walk a few blocks. I go, Una, what do you think when people say stuff like that? And she goes, it's a waste of my time. And I was like, that's the meanest thing anyone's ever said to me. And I know Bill Burr. Very rare that I would see my dad being a doctor. Like, I remember one time I played soccer when I was a kid. I was the goalie, and one time I dove head first for the ball, and I got to it, and then the kid on the other team kicked my head. I know, with the intensity he had intended for the ball. And I don't know the rest of the story, but I have been told that I hopped up and I was like, I'm good. And they took my word for it and they kept me in the game. And about 15 minutes later, I just wander off the field. Onto another field. And my teammates ran over, they go, Mike, are you okay? And I said to them, and I quote, I go, what are we even doing here? And my dad ran onto the field, and he picked me up, and he carried me off, and he drove me home, and he asked me all the questions that doctors ask their patients. What's your middle name? What are the classes you take at school? And I was like, oh, okay, this is what my dad does. And then the other time, when it came up, is that I went to St. Mary's School for grade school in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, and every Friday night we had science club, which is kind of like a mafia front for Catholic school. Like We believe Jesus turned water into wine, and also there were dinosaurs, you know, and... So every Friday night, it's like a different parent explaining what science has to do with their job. And one night it was gonna be my dad, and I was so nervous. I was like, what's he gonna say? He doesn't know anything about science. And he came in, and he brought his medical tools, and he took them out one by one, and he explained what each of them does. He took out a three-dimensional model of the brain, explained the hemispheres of the brain, and all these kids